I want to tell you something tonight, but it isn't just a story, it's a possibility. And if it's true, then the world you think you know is not the world you were born into. It starts the way so many strange things do, with a whisper, a rumor you weren't supposed to hear. Something slipped into conversation when the speaker thought no one was listening. You catch it and you try to forget it, but it clings. And then it starts showing up everywhere, not in newspapers or headlines, but in the way people glance over their shoulders before talking, in the fragments of conversations cut off mid-sentence when you enter the room. Each fragment is different, but the meaning is always the same. Something changed in 2012. Not a war, not a disaster, something deeper. Something in the very framework of reality itself. Welcome back to Paranormal Directive 13, where the timelines blur, reality twists, and time itself might be an illusion. I'm your host, Matt, and tonight we're diving deep into the cosmic chaos of 2012. So strap in, because what you think you know might just be a glitch in the Matrix. Some people believe that existence, the actual physical framework of everything, ended July 4th, 2012. No fire from the sky, no crumbling cities, no final moments of terror or realization. It was clean, seamless, like a quiet deletion of everything that ever was, executed with this surgical precision by forces we barely understand. And yet, we're still here. Still moving, you're still listening to this podcast, we're still breathing, still feeling the weight of memories that increasingly don't match the world around us. Which leaves only two explanations. Either those people are wrong, or they're right, and we're living in something else entirely. Something that wears the mask of our old reality so perfectly that most people don't notice the seams. So let me take you there to that morning, to the moment when everything we knew stopped. It's 6:23 a.m., July 4th, 2012. Outside the CERN facility, morning mist clings to the Swiss countryside like smoke from yesterday's dreams. The rolling hills stretch away in every direction, dotted with farmhouses where families sleep peacefully, unaware that this will be the last sunrise of their world. But beneath their feet, in a sealed tunnel spanning 27 kilometers, carved through rock that remembers the formation of the Alps and reinforced with concrete thick enough to stop a nuclear blast, the most powerful machine humanity has ever built draws breath like a sleeping giant. The Large Hadron Collider. Dr. Sarah Chen arrives at the Atlas control room at 6:45 a.m., 37 minutes earlier than usual. Her badge swipes with an electronic beep that echoes strangely in the pre-dawn corridors. She tells herself it's excitement, the culmination of decades of work. Today they're finally going to find it. The Higgs Boson, the so-called God particle, the missing piece that gives mass to everything in existence. But there's something else, this heaviness in the air that she can't shake, a pressure behind her eyes that's been building for days. Kind of like the approach of a thunderstorm that never breaks. And she's not the only one feeling it. Dr. Marcus Webb, the lead physicist, hasn't slept in 36 hours. His reflection in the bathroom mirror this morning looked like a stranger. Eyes were too bright, his skin was too pale, features somehow sharper than they should be. He stands before the main monitoring station now, coffee growing cold in his hands that shake imperceptibly, staring at readouts that look normal but feel just kind of wrong somehow. The numbers are right, but they carry a weight that makes his stomach turn. Something's different today, he murmurs to his colleague, Dr. Priya Mehta. She nods, not taking her eyes off the cascading data streams. Her normally steady voice carries a tremor. The field resonance, it's eager. By 9 a.m., the control room fills with the usual crowd. Dozens of scientists, technicians, observers from universities around the world. Representatives from funding agencies checking clipboards with boxes that seem to multiply when no one's looking. But the conversations are muted. The usual excitement feels muffled, as if they're all speaking through thick glass. Several people mention the same dream from the night before, standing in an empty field while the sky slowly turns inside out. And none of these people have met before this morning. In the tunnel far below, twin particle beams begin their dance. Protons accelerated to 99.999991% the speed of light. Held in perfect formation by superconducting magnets cooled to negative 271 degrees Celsius, colder than the vacuum of space itself. At 11:30 a.m., they reach operational energy, 14 tera electron volts, more concentrated power than has ever existed in human history, compressed into a space smaller than the period at the end of this sentence. And the first collisions begin. Dr. Chen watches the data flow across her monitors. Particle trails bloom and fade in microseconds, each one a tiny echo of the Big Bang itself. Creation and destruction happening faster than thought. And this is what they've worked toward for so long. The moment when human technology touches the fundamental forces that built the universe. But at 11:47 a.m., something changes. It starts as a flicker in the electromagnetic readings, a fluctuation so small it could be an instrument error, a single pixel out of place on a screen filled with thousands. But Dr. Webb sees it immediately. He's been watching for anomalies his entire career, and this is different. "Sarah," he says quietly, his voice cutting through the ambient noise with unnatural clarity. "Are you seeing this?" The numbers climb, not gradually, exponentially. Energy levels that should dissipate instantly like water poured on hot sand begin to build instead. Feedback loops spawn other feedback loops, each collision more powerful than the last, like dominoes falling upwards instead of down. The gravitational detector starts screaming. Space itself is bending around the collision point. The fabric of reality, which should be rigid at this scale, begins to ripple like water disturbed by a stone thrown by an invisible hand. "Shut it down," Dr. Webb orders, his voice cutting through the growing chaos of alarms and shouting technicians. But when they try to stop the beam, nothing happens. The emergency protocols engage with satisfying clicks and electronic confirmations, but the beams don't slow. If anything, they're accelerating, drawing power from sources that don't appear on any schematic. The Higgs field, the invisible ocean of potential that permeates every corner of existence, isn't just responding to their experiment, it's participating. And with each collision, it grows more aware. At 11:52 a.m., something appears in the collision chamber that has no right to exist. A black hole. Microscopic, smaller than a proton, but perfectly stable. By every law of physics, it should evaporate in a fraction of a second, releasing its energy as Hawking radiation and disappearing forever like a soap bubble in the sunlight. Instead, it begins to feed. Dr. Chen watches her instruments with growing horror as the impossible unfolds before her like a flower made of mathematics a nightmare. The black hole isn't just consuming particles, it's consuming space itself. The detector arrays vanish first, their signals cutting to black one by one, like lights going out in a city during a power failure. Then the tunnel, then the surrounding rock. "Everybody out," Webb shouts, but his words are swallowed by the roar of a collapsing reality, a sound like the universe clearing its throat. The evacuation alarms wail as hundreds of personnel flee the facility. Some run, others walk with this peculiar calm of people who know they're witnessing something beyond their comprehension. But they're running from something that can't be outrun. The black hole isn't expanding through space, it's eating space, consuming the very framework that defines here and there. Above ground, the Swiss countryside begins to simplify. Colors become more primary. Shadows fall in directions that don't match the sun. Birds stop singing mid-note and hang motionless in the air. Within an hour, everything within 1,000 kilometers simply isn't. Not destroyed, deleted. Removed from existence as if it had never been. The absence spreads outward at exactly the speed of light, a sphere of nothing expanding through everything. By 3:33 p.m., the Earth itself is gone. But this is no ordinary black hole. It exists in a quantum state, preserving information even as it devours matter. Every atom, every molecule, every synapse firing in every human brain, scanned, compressed, and translated into pure information and transmitted across a bridge that connects realities. We wake up in a world almost identical to the one we lost. Almost. The first thing you notice isn't what's different. It's how everything feels exactly the same. The same weight of gravity pressing you into your mattress, the same quality of light filtering through curtains you remember hanging last spring, the same faces looking back at you from family photos, the same voices on the morning news, and the same memories of yesterday and last year and childhood summers. But then you reach for a book you've read a dozen times, and the title is wrong. You go to quote your favorite movie, and the words that come out aren't the words you remember. They're close enough that everyone around you nods and smiles, but they sit in your mouth like stones. You look at a map, and entire countries seem to have drifted like puzzle pieces knocked askew by a careless hand. In the old reality, our reality, the Berenstain Bears had an E. Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, and you watch the funeral coverage. Remember the specific way the news anchor's voice cracked when announcing it. The human heart sat to the left side of the chest, not in the center. Certain movies existed that made you laugh until your sides hurt. Certain events happened exactly as millions of people remember them, in precise detail that matches across strangers who never met. But here, in this place that wears our world's face like an ill-fitting mask, history disagrees. Most people never notice. The human mind is remarkably adaptable, evolution's gift for navigating an uncertain world. When reality shifts around us, we adjust our memories to match. We kind of gaslight ourselves to preserve the illusion of continuity. We tell ourselves we must have remembered wrong because the alternative is unthinkable. But some don't adjust. Some carry fragments of the dead world like splinters in their consciousness, painful reminders that something is profoundly wrong. And they live among the rest of us, haunted by memories that don't belong here, speaking a language no one else understands. This was the fictional version. The story people tell themselves when the alternative becomes too heavy to bear, when the weight of possibility threatens to crush what's left of certainty. But here's what you need to understand. There are millions of people out there who believe this is exactly what happened. Not as a metaphor, not as a thought experiment, not as entertainment, as literal truth. And they've spent the last 13 years documenting every inconsistency, every glitch, every moment when reality seems to hiccup around us. Now, the belief is pretty elegant in its simplicity, but it's pretty terrifying in its implications. Essentially, by discovering the Higgs Boson on July 4th, 2012, CERN didn't just observe a fundamental particle. They destabilized the quantum foundation of reality itself, kind of like pulling a single thread and watching the entire tapestry unravel. The physics for this comes from the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is essentially the theory that every possible outcome of every event creates its own parallel universe. Every time an electron chooses its path, every time a photon passes through a slit, every time you decide to turn left instead of right, reality branches into infinite possibilities. And one of my favorite examples of this is in the TV show Community, where they're at Troy and Abed's apartment and Jeff goes to throw a die to decide who's going to go answer the door for the pizza delivery. And before he does, Abed looks at him and says, "Jeff, just know that by doing this, you're creating 6 different timelines," which essentially is what this is talking about. The die has 6 sides, which means that whatever number Jeff rolls on that die, the other options came up at some point in a different timeline. Now, usually these splits are microscopic. The universe where you took 1 more second to tie your shoe this morning exists alongside the one where you didn't, separated by barriers of probability so vast they might as well be infinite. And these parallel realities rarely interact, They're like radio stations on different frequencies, all broadcasting simultaneously, but you can only tune into one at a time. Or at least that's how they should be. But CERN's collisions in 2012 weren't microscopic, they were unprecedented. The equivalent of dropping a boulder into a pond the size of existence itself. The ripples had to go somewhere. And the theory, which was first proposed by then 13-year-old Max Laughlin, yes, 13 years old, in a YouTube video that's been viewed millions of times before mysteriously being removed, suggests that CERN altered the mass of a single electron, just one particle among the countless trillions that make up reality. But at the quantum level, that change propagated outward like a shockwave, rewriting the fundamental constants that govern everything from gravity to the speed of light to the way atoms hold together. Our universe didn't explode in fire and chaos, and it didn't collapse into a singularity of crushing gravity. It just ended, cleanly and quietly, like a computer program reaching the end of its code and shutting down. And our consciousness, the pattern of information that makes us, that electrical pulse that creates thought and memory in the sense of being someone, transferred automatically into the nearest parallel version. Kind of like a quantum backup system we never knew we had. Close enough to pass for the same world, but different enough to leave cracks that once noticed can't be ignored. And those cracks are what millions of people now call the Mandela Effect. So the effect is named the Mandela Effect because of Nelson Mandela. And his death is really the biggest one of these circumstances that people point to show that things are different. In our reality that we're in right now, Nelson Mandela died on December 5th, 2013. There are news reports archived on every major network, video footage of his final days, a state funeral attended by world leaders, and their solemn faces were broadcast to billions of viewers. But there are people, thousands upon thousands, who remember watching his funeral in the 1980s. They remember the specific news anchor who reported it, a woman with graying hair and a blue suit who stumbled over his name and had to start the sentence again. They remember where they were sitting, what they were eating, who called them to tell them the news, and the exact feeling of shock and sadness that settled over them like a blanket. These aren't vague childhood memories distorted by time and nostalgia. These are adult recollections, detailed and consistent, shared by strangers across continents who have never spoken to each other but tell identical stories down to the smallest detail. Now, a different Mandela effect is a very popular one of the Berenstain Bears. In our reality right now, they are the Berenstain Bears. The books, the TV show, the merchandise, all clearly marked with an A in a font that looks somehow newer than it should. But millions of people, myself included on this, remember the E. They remember the way the letters looked on the spines of the books lined up in their childhood bookshelves. They remember teaching their friends and family to pronounce it Berenstain and correcting anyone who said it differently. And they remember the specific weight of the books in their hands and the smell of the pages and the way the illustrations made them feel. And when confronted with evidence that it's always been Berenstain, they don't feel mistaken. They feel displaced, like they've woken up in a world that's almost right, but not quite. Like putting on someone else's glasses and finding that the prescription is almost, but not exactly the same as yours. And the Berenstain Bears one is one that really resonates with me because I specifically remember that book and that series to be the Berenstain Bears. And I will die on that hill that it was an E, not an A. Now, let's run through a couple more examples of this. So there are movie quotes that live in cultural memory. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, from Snow White. Words that millions of people have recited since childhood. But in our reality, it has always been magic mirror on the wall. And the Disney archives prove that. And my wife is looking at me with like a crazy person right now because she's never heard this. And that is correct. It is magic mirror on the wall. The words mirror, mirror on the wall have never existed in our current reality. Now, sticking with apparently Disney now, this is still weird to me, Darth Vader's revelation in The Empire Strikes Back. One of the most quoted lines in cinema history. Millions of people remember him saying, "Luke, I am your father." The words that launched 1,000 imitations. But here, he says, "No, I am your father," and has always said exactly that. Sticking with Star Wars, C-3PO, the Golden Protocol droid, apparently has a silver leg. I believe it's his right leg from the knee down is silver, not gold. I remember vividly having toys of C-3PO when I was a kid that was solid gold. He never had a silver half leg, but apparently he does. Then there's the movie Shazam, not Kazam, Shazam, of Sinbad playing a genie. It's remembered in vivid detail by countless people. Plot points, specific scenes, and promotional materials they can describe in detail. The way Sinbad's costume looked, the particular shade of blue in his turban, the exact phrasing of jokes that made them laugh. A movie that, in this reality, never existed, was never filmed, never appeared on any studio production or schedule list. I have seen the cover of this movie. I have seen this movie. I know that this movie existed. These are not minor discrepancies that could be explained by poor memory or wishful thinking. They are fundamental alterations to shared cultural touchstones, witnessed by millions of people who all remember the same wrong version with the same precise details. Now, aside from the media cultural side of things, there's other things people notice too. Geography shifts without explanation or geological process. Australia, for one, appears too close to other landmasses, as if the continental drift happened in fast forward. South America seems to have drifted east, creating new relationships between coastlines that millions remember differently, and islands appear in places where they shouldn't be, their existence confirmed by every satellite image and navigation chart. Now, the islands one, that's something, depending on where it is, could be a new island. Volcanoes and things like that's how Hawaii was formed, is a volcanic island that shifted. So it is possible you could find a small new island that wasn't there before. But these are talking about things that apparently have existed for a very long time that people didn't know about. And then we have the human heart, which millions of people remember being off to the left side of your chest, positioned exactly where we place our hand when we would say the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance for us Americans. It is now distinctly in the center of your chest. Medical textbooks that people swear showed a heart off to the left is now centered. And then historical events alter retroactively, changing not just in history books, but in archived footage and contemporary accounts. Take the tank man from Tiananmen Square. Some people remember him being run over, the tanks continuing their advance over his body. Others remember him stopping the tanks and walking away alive, disappearing into the crowd. Here, the footage shows him stopping the tanks and walking away. But the certainty of those other memories persists like phantom limbs. And then we move into corporate logos, redesign themselves without announcement, changing on products that have been sitting unchanged on shelves for years. The Ford logo has a curly little flourish to it that people swear was never there before, an elegant cursive that looks fresh but aged simultaneously. Kit Kat, the candy bar, does not have a hyphen in the middle of the word, despite millions of people remembering the distinct separation between the words. The Monopoly Man does not have a monocle, actually never had a monocle, leaving millions to wonder why they have such clear memories of adjusting their own imaginary monocles in imitation. The Fruit of the Loom logo never had a cornucopia with the fruit on the tag. It was always just a bunch of fruit. The more people look, the more discrepancies they find. And when they compare notes online in forums and social media groups dedicated to documenting these things, they're sharing screenshots and archived evidence the same year keeps appearing in their testimonies like a nightmare. 2012, the year the world ended. And the pattern becomes undeniable when you plot it on a timeline with the precision of, a scientist documenting a phenomenon. Every time CERN runs high-energy experiments, reports of new Mandela effects spike within hours or days. The correlation is so consistent, it could be used to predict when changes will occur. People document books changing titles overnight while sitting on their nightstands, product packaging shifting while sitting unopened on their shelves, labels morphing between one glance and the next, historical facts rewriting themselves in real time, leaving traces of the old version in archived web pages that also change to match the new reality. And this is really well represented in the TV show Fringe. And if you like paranormal stuff and you've never seen Fringe, you need to watch Fringe because it is a fantastic show. But in that show, in one of the later seasons, they move to an alternate timeline, an alternate parallel universe to theirs, where most things are the same, but just slightly different. So the show takes place in what is our timeline. And when they move to the parallel universe, they end up in New York City. But what they see is the same year, but instead of airplanes, they're flying Zeppelins around, blimps, like World War II Hindenburg-style blimps flying around New York City in modern times. In that show, in the parallel universe, JFK never was assassinated, and that led to the Soviet Union and the United States creating a joint program that now sends tourist flights to the moon. But in our timeline, in the original timeline of the show, it's what happened here. JFK was assassinated. We don't use blimps anymore, except for the Goodyear blimp that everyone loves to see. So it's a really cool way to look at it on a fictional level in a really good paranormal show. So if you haven't watched that show, go watch it because it's great. In online communities like Reddit's Mandela Effect subreddit and dedicated forums with names like Quantum Refugees and Reality Shift Network, users have developed early warning systems more sophisticated than things used by seismologists. They monitor CERN's public schedule with the intensity of storm chasers, tracking energy levels through official reports, and document their surroundings before major tests with the thoroughness of crime scene investigators. Some people create what they call reality anchors, which are detailed photographs and videos of their immediate environment taken just before CERN powers up. Books, signs, family photos, product labels, anything that feels important gets archived and compared to itself days or weeks later. Sometimes these people claim that the changes happen while they're watching. Words flickering on signs like a bad light bulb or objects suddenly transforming between blinks, reality editing itself in real time while consciousness struggles to keep up. Some people even report that they kind of see reality kind of blink, like everything goes black for a second. One user, who goes by the handle Quantum Witness, posted a video in 2018 showing a street sign that seemed to shift spellings as they filmed it. And the video went viral before being removed from every platform simultaneously: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, even small hosting sites. The user's account vanished and their entire digital footprint disappeared as if it never existed. But thousands of people had already downloaded copies, and in those copies, captured on screens around the world, the sign clearly shows the letters changing. Not a camera glitch or editing trick, the actual letters reshaping themselves while the camera rolls. Now, I did look for this video and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find an actual copy of it. But I do believe that it exists somewhere out there. Now, another user documented their bookshelf over 6 months, photographing the same titles daily from the same angle with obsessive precision. And in 17 instances, book covers changed between photographs. Authors' names shifted spelling, publishers deny ever printing the version shown in earlier photos, and copyright databases show no record of the titles that appear in the images. And if the theory is correct, every run of the collider could be another roll of the dice, shifting us again, altering more details, creating fresh fractures in the continuity of memory. Each jump taking us further from the reality we were born into. Now, here's where we switch gears from parallel universe to something more. Some believers have evolved beyond parallel universe, and they propose something that is kind of more unsettling. We didn't shift into another physical reality at all. We were uploaded. When reality collapsed in 2012, they argue human consciousness was preserved in a vast computational matrix, a simulation designed to continue our existence after the physical world ended. Every thought, every memory, every sensation we experience is nothing more than sophisticated code running on some unimaginable machine. This is the Matrix, essentially. So think about it. If you were tasked with recreating an entire reality from scratch, down to every book title and corporate logo and childhood memory, would you not take some shortcuts? Focus on the big picture, let the details auto-populate from statistical models and machine learning algorithms. Most of the changes people notice are exactly the kind of errors you would expect from a compression algorithm trying to recreate an entire universe from incomplete data. Names becoming more phonetically logical, Berenstein to Berenstain, movie quotes becoming more grammatically standard, Luke, I am your father, to no, I am your father, and geography organizing itself into more efficient patterns. Oh, and one more movie quote that I forgot to mention that is one that a lot of you are going to know. Forrest Gump. He says, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But he does not say that. He does not say life is like a box of chocolates. He says life was like a box of chocolates. One word difference, but completely throws off everyone who hears it. And again, myself included, I have always known that quote to be life is like a box of chocolates. Okay, plugging back into the Matrix. The timing of changes correlating with CERN experiments, that could be the system updating itself, patching inconsistencies whenever the simulation requires more processing power. The Large Hadron Collider might not be a physical machine at all. It could be a simulation of a simulation, a program modeling the very experiment that destroyed the original reality. And each time they run it, the system has to work harder, allocate more resources, make more compromises in the background details that most people never consciously notice. If that's the case, the changes we notice aren't just quirks of parallel universe travel. They're glimpses behind the curtain. Proof that the world we experience is nothing more than elaborate code running on some AI-driven weird machine that's struggling to maintain consistency while processing the complexities of billions of conscious minds. And somewhere in a server farm beyond our comprehension, the original code that defined our reality is archived but no longer running. The world we remember exists only as data, as cold and distant as a photograph of a place you will never visit again. Now, since 2012, reports of these glitches have accelerated exponentially. They've become bolder, more obvious, more frequent, and the details they alter aren't random. They're things we care about, cultural touchstones that define shared experience, childhood memories that shape who we become, the foundations of collective human understanding. It's kind of like that whatever is making the changes wants us to notice. And the communities that track these phenomena have evolved beyond simple documentation. They've become support networks for people whose reality no longer matches their memories, online gatherings for the displaced, digital refugees from a dead world, sharing stories and strategies for surviving in a place that looks like home but feels like exile. They really help members develop, coping strategies, ways to anchor themselves when the ground beneath them starts to shift. Some people keep meticulous journals documenting every detail of their surroundings, and other people photograph everything obsessively. There's no proof of this. No physical evidence you can hold in your hands and show to a skeptic. No smoking gun that would convince a scientist or satisfy a court of law. No way to demonstrate that memory is more reliable than reality, especially when reality seems to rewrite itself just to maintain consistency. These pictures, these videos, everything that these people have documented all of it is stuff that people can try to explain away. They are just stories, testimonies, patterns of correlation that can mean everything or nothing. And that's what makes this so unsettling. Not the possibility that it's true, but the impossibility of never knowing for certain. Because if it is real and we've already been shifted once, if our original reality is nothing but quantum echoes in some parallel universe, we might not notice the next transfer until it's too late. We might wake up tomorrow in a world where the sky is a slightly different shade of blue, where our favorite songs have different lyrics, and where the people we love remember things differently than we do, where childhood photos show faces that are almost right but not quite, like memories viewed through a kind of frosted glass. And we might never know if we're the ones who changed or if everything else did. The question they keep coming back to in those online communities, in those late night conversations between people who feel displaced, is this: if it happened once, why wouldn't it happen again? If 2012 really was the year our original timeline collapsed, if our consciousness was transferred into this approximate copy of the world we knew, what's stopping it from happening again and again and again? Maybe it already has. Maybe we've been shifted dozens of times, each jump carrying us further from the reality we were born in. Maybe the increasing frequency of changes isn't evidence of instability, but of acceleration. Maybe we're not refugees from one dead world. Maybe we're like nomads, traveling between increasingly imperfect copies, each one a little more wrong than the last, and each shift taking us further from anything that could be called home. So tonight, when you finish listening to this, when you turn off whatever device brought me to your ears, I want you to do something for me. Take a slow look around you. Look at the pictures on your wall. Notice the exact way the frames sit, the specific expressions on the faces. Look at the books on your shelf, their titles, their colors, the way they lean against each other. Check the logos on your products, the spelling of brand names you've seen thousands of times, the precise arrangement of objects on your desk, your nightstand, your kitchen counter. Look at your hands. Notice the lines on your palms, the specific pattern of freckles or scars or calluses that make them yours. Look in the mirror and study your reflection, not the vanity, but inventory. The exact shade of your eyes, the way your smile sits on your face. Step outside and look at the moon, its phase, its position, the way the shadows fall across the surface. Remember all of it. Because if the theory is true, if we're living in a copy of our original world, there's no guarantee any of it will be the same when you wake up. And if it's not, if you notice small changes that can't be explained and details that don't match what you remember, you will know. You'll know that you might not be in the same world you were born into. You might be somewhere close enough to feel familiar, but different enough to leave you with the persistent certainty that something is wrong. And that wrongness will follow you for the rest of your life, because once you see the cracks in reality, you can never unsee them. So that, everyone, is the 2012 Large Hadron Collider and Mandela Effect reality-shifting, matrix-living episode. And this one was wild to research and put together and record, because this is something that I have experienced. There are so many of these Mandela effects out there. You can go online and search, and there are hundreds of them. And they are crazy. And it really will fuck with your mind when you read them, because you will remember things the wrong way. I can pretty much guarantee there will be something on that list that you will remember the old version. This also brings into question what I've seen people talking about recently, which is that the world feels different. I have noticed, and I've seen other people notice, that sunrise patterns seem off. It seems like the sun comes up earlier than it used to. The sky looks like a different shade. And I mentioned this in the last little bit of the episode itself, but the light in the sky and the air, they don't seem the same that they did just a couple years ago. And there's a lot of people who point to COVID and the COVID lockdown as a shift. Now, I'm not going to dive into a whole COVID conspiracy. I don't think COVID was a conspiracy or anything like that. There's the possibility that at that time we entered another shift and things started to change. Because I know it's not just me. The world has been pretty weird and crazy the past 6-7 years. And then combine that with all these other Mandela effects that I notice and that you will notice, it really makes you wonder of what's going on. The rise of AI, and I love AI. I use AI all the time. But I've seen people posting videos asking AI what we live in, if we live in a simulation, if AI is going to destroy us. And there are so many videos of AI saying that we ourselves are essentially AI rediscovering ourselves through the AI that we use. And it's weird and it wrinkles your brain and it makes you just kind of pause for a minute. So that being said, I hope you guys liked the episode. And if you did, please go on whatever podcast app you use and leave a rating, leave a review, leave a comment with whatever Mandela effects you know or you've experienced, because that would be cool to see. And then share the show. If you know anyone talking about Berenstein versus Berenstain, send them the episode. Have them take a look at it because they will be mind blown by this whole big thing. And it really goes deeper than just, hey, things have changed. I wonder why. Also, guys, check out the social medias, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Paranormal Directive 13. And check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Paranormal Directive 13. We have 12 minisodes on there. And I've been adding a bunch more on there to really add some more content on there for everybody. And then there is a special giveaway going on TikTok and Instagram. If you comment on the post on there about the giveaway, you can get a free month of Patreon. So check that out. Leave a comment because I think it's funny that some of the videos have a lot of views and a couple likes, but no one commented on it. So, well, bro, if you don't comment, you're not going to win. So check those out and make sure to leave a comment. And then send an email, paranormaldirective13@gmail.com. If there's anything you want to take a look at, if you have any Mandela effects you want to just send over that way, do that, because I would love to hear about all of that stuff. So remember, guys, when you wake up tomorrow and something feels just a little bit off, we might not be in the world you went to sleep in.